Fala pessoal do SouJava, bem-vindos aí para mais um SouJava Talks. Hoje nós vamos ter um convidado muito especial aí do Quarkus. Eu sei que eu estou falando em português ainda, ok? Você que chegou aí no chat agora, manda aí para a gente de onde você está assistindo e já se prepara aí as questões, porque nós vamos receber aqui um grande amigo meu que eu conheci lá na GeekCon, lá em Praga. E a gente teve uma grande conversa lá bacana, mas infelizmente eu não esqueci de gravar, cara. Puta, a gente fica meio, sabe, atordoado com a situação. É uma situação bem inusitada. Foi a primeira vez que eu estava lá em Praga, a primeira vez que eu estava viajando fora do Brasil. E foi bem legal, cara. Eu espero que hoje você possa trazer suas dúvidas sobre Quarkus, porque nós estamos aqui com o Martin Stefanko. Então, eu vou mudar para inglês agora, para que a gente possa trazer nosso convidado. Beleza? Switch to English now. Hello, everyone from SouJava. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Okay, so send us where are you from in the chat. It will be amazing to see the people that is watching us, where they live in, okay? So let's stop to speak. I got an amazing friend in a GeekCon. I met an amazing friend there. We did a lot of conversations about Java, Quarkus, Jakarta, so many amazing conversation. But, oh, amazing, I can see Victor. Victor, okay, good morning. It's morning down in Brazil right now. I think it's noon, right, actually. Yeah. Victor, yes. Yeah, okay, Ross. Amazing. Oh, you are watching from Lisbon. Lisbon, Portugal. Amazing. Oh, Adriano. Oh, good afternoon. For you, it's good afternoon. Probably he already had the lunch. So let me bring our guest today that will speak and will be presenting Quarkus stuff. It will be amazing. Let's bring him. Hey, Martin, come on, man. Hello. Oh, how are you, man? How are you doing?
Actually quite good, thank you.
Oh,
Looking
thanks.
forward to this talk.
Yeah. So thanks so much for accepting our request. So we did a lot of amazing conversation on GeekCon when I meet you in person. So we did a lot of conversation about Quarkus, about Jakarta, about many things. Unfortunately, I did the record. Sorry, guys. I was a little shiny on there. But today we got amazing talk. So Martin, I saw some people right here. We got people from Brazil, from Lisbon, from the north of Brazil, Queixada, Vitor, Mateus also, Robert de Rezende, okay, Minas Gerais, it's a center of Brazil. So, Martin, please, do you want to share your expectation about today, or if you want to do some greetings and so on to the people, feel free, man.
Definitely. So, hello everyone. My name is Martin Stefanko. I actually live in Czech Republic, so for me it's later afternoon now. But today we are going to talk about the book that I'm writing together with my colleague Jan Martiška, which is called Quarkus in Action, which I hopefully convince you to read in the end.
Yeah, amazing. We got a huge a huge Quarkus community down here in Brazil. Actually, I invite Mark to join us, to join the Quarkus Club. So if you guys on the chat got some questions about Quarkus along the way, don't hesitate to send the question in the chat. I will. Don't matter if you send it in Portuguese. I can try to translate to Martin, and Martin will be pleasant to answer, or maybe trying to redirect to someone that can answer. Am I right? And that's it. So, Martin, do you have more information that could be interesting to the people that are watching us?
Well, definitely. Well, if I can start my presentation, then basically we can start getting into the book.
Okay, great. So please share your screen. I will
Okay.
be on the backstage. And guys, don't hesitate. Send the question, send message. Will be amazing talk. Okay. Oh, I will add your will,
Okay.
and I will
Thank
be
you.
on the backstage. Okay.
So hopefully everyone can read me or hear me all right. So what we are going to talk about today is, as I mentioned, Quarkus in Action, the book which is currently being produced in Manning Publications. And I subtitled it as Engaging Way to Learn Quarkus from Zero to Production. And I hopefully will explain you why I made this. So a little bit really fast about who I am. So my name is Martin Stefanko. I work at Red Hat as principal software engineer. My main responsibilities are around Red Hat's middleware. So that's Quarkus, JBoss EAP, Wildfly, individual projects included in that, like SmallRye, Weld, Hibernate, RESTEasy, etc. For a few years now, I'm already a MicroProfile committer, so I'm active in that project too. I am a big microservices enthusiast. I still believe that this is the way to go architecture for modern deployments. And basically, I put here where you can find me on X, but basically on every social media, I am X Stefank on Mastodon, Blue Sky, etc. So you can find me almost everywhere. Okay, so what we are going to talk about today is our book, which is currently still in the early access program, but you can already read the first 8 chapters which are published, and actually chapter 9 will be edited really soon. The production or like printing should start hopefully in spring next year. We will get into the details later, but if you have any questions about whatever that I will forget to mention, just please write them into the chat. So, why I want to speak about from zero to production in this book is because we really want it, or like we still want to create a book which will be a really solidified journey from not knowing anything about Quarkus to really having a production ready like system at the end. And how we did this, and which really fits into this in action series in Manning, is by developing so-called car rental system during this book, where you will have by the end of the book 5 microservices, which will create probably the most complex system that you will ever see, because nobody is crazy enough to do this in production. We will see on the next slide the whole architecture, because we want to showcase as many features as we can. We opt in to use basically different databases for every microservice. We use different communication protocols between every microservice. This is definitely not something that you will do. Typically, you will choose one or two and you will stick to them. We are mixing both synchronous and asynchronous messaging. So you will see Kafka and RabbitMQ there, but we are also want to showcase like traditional HTTP on the other hand. We also will demonstrate all observability thingies that are nowadays required in productions, like telemetry data as metrics, traces, logs are of course there too. And also we are creating a simple CLI application just to showcase some functionality, because Quarkus, in the way how Quarkus is being basically developed, you are really able to create with Java really fast running command line applications really easily. Okay, so I mentioned the car rental architecture, so you can see the whole car rental here. Basically, this is a really high-level overview of the architecture. It's not really important what the individual services are, but the idea is that we are basically starting from scratch, creating individual services step by step, adding individual functionalities basically on top of that, depending on the actual content of individual chapters in the book. So basically, you are adding really small chunks of functionality, always learning what that functionality is about, how is it integrated in Quarkus, and then really you have the option to try it and implement it inside this car rental system. you can see that we have REST somewhere. We have also GraphQL. We have gRPC here. RabbitMQ and Kafka are demonstrating something which is called reactive messaging. So that's asynchronous message passing, which are quite different communication protocols, different architectures, and we don't have databases here, but I will show you later. Basically, this is really unnecessarily complex system, but in the end, you will get the idea about really the most common use cases for any Quarkus applications that we have currently on market. So really, from a high-level overview, what you can really find inside that book, basically now the individual bullets top level will roughly correspond to individual chapters in the book. So actually, this one is exception because these are basically the first 3 chapters where you will basically start with the introduction into what Quarkus is, why Quarkus was created, what kind of problems it's trying to solve, how it is trying to solve them. We will also explain you the Quarkus architecture, so you will understand how really high-level overview of how Quarkus is achieving this kind of performance, functionalities, etc. Then in the second chapter, you will start coding, or you will see how to create new Quarkus applications. We will show you 3 different ways how to create Quarkus applications because everyone prefers something else, and we want to cover everything. We will also explain the individual contents of the generated applications, explain to you how you can get more stuff generated, etc. Like really the whole overview of how to get started with Quarkus. We will also explain the extensions because this is quite important for the rest of the book, because in Quarkus, and hopefully most of you who are here are already familiar at least a little bit with Quarkus, but for those who are not, extensions are pluggable pieces of functionalities in Quarkus that you can pick and choose into individual applications. And the functionality, how this works, it can be it's not hard to use, but it's might be harder to understand what the extension really consists of and why we are basically integrating everything through this extension framework. I can explain this later, depending on how much time we will have, but if you want to hear this, just ask the question in the chat. And in the third chapter, which is personally my favorite, we will dive into this, I call it Dev Star goodies, because I don't know how else to call it, because in Quarkus you will get this dev mode, which is, for me at least personally, the single most productive tool that I ever used in my career, because you have a continuous run of your application, and anytime you will make possibly almost any change inside your Quarkus application, you will just hit your application with an HTTP endpoint, or you can manually trigger the reload inside the terminal where you are running the dev mode, and it will be restarted in a few hundred milliseconds. So in a blink of the eye, you are getting back the feedback of what you just typed. So for me, dev mode is single-handedly the most effective tooling that I can use in my day-to-day work. And this is why we really press on this chapter, because like really this is what we developers enjoy the most. With that, you will get also a bunch of other stuff like dev services, which are automatic integration with third-party services. So for instance, if you have a dependency on a Postgres database and you don't configure any connection to it, inside this dev mode, we will actually start a Postgres container in the background, and we will automatically configure your Quarkus application to connect to this Postgres container. So you are already connected and you can start developing your entities. And this works with many different things, like for instance, Kafka and RabbitMQ later in the chapter, also for different databases. It also works, and I don't think that we have it in the book, but it works with Kubernetes, for instance, Kubernetes client extension. So there is a bunch of these dev services that you can use out of the box. There is also this dev UI, which is basically inside this dev mode, you can also get a nice user interface. So if you prefer to click and not like do stuff in the terminal, then you have a lot of clickable, like basically old functionality that you have inside the terminal. You can also manually click inside this dev UI, which is available in dev mode. But plus, this dev UI can actually provide you a really nice insight into your application. For instance, you can list all properties which you can configure in your current setup inside your Quarkus application. So if you will add new extension, you will add a new bunch of configuration, and you can see it like really in one place, search through it, see what actually is set as a default. So it's a really nice way how to work with configuration, for instance. Also, you can, for instance, see the individual dependencies of your CDI beans. So if you have more complex systems or you are tied inside some CDI beans inside Quarkus, it's really helpful. And last but not least, you have also this continuous testing, which I still put inside dev goodies, because inside dev mode, you can basically rerun your tests with every change that you are making to your application. So if you make any change, save the file, we actually will rerun the tests which are probably relevant to that change, and you can see live feedback of what you are changing, whether you are breaking the test or not. So really, dev mode is for me like so useful productivity tool that typically when you start it in the morning, you don't need to stop it until you are done in the evening. This is why we are placing a lot of focus on this getting started experience. After this, you should have already basically the really good idea of what Quarkus can do for you in your day-to-day tasks. So it's time to move to real production development. And actually in chapter 4, you will start developing that car rental system. And we will start by actually explaining those three communication synchronous protocols that are basically HTTP and REST, GraphQL, and gRPC. Basically, this is not like that we want to force you to reuse or like use different protocols between different services, because if we will go back to the architecture, you'll see that it's kind of forced to like put these different protocols inside the architecture. You would typically stick only with one of them inside the real world system. But if we want to demonstrate the integration with these different protocols, because they are used slightly differently, it's good that you have it like in a really one chapter all in one place, and you can compare it side by side. You will try to implement every one of them, and you will see which one you prefer. After that, because this is like pretty straightforward, we will basically create the first three services inside this chapter, because that's reservation, rental service, and inventory service, and also this inventory CLI, but that's like standalone application on the side. We will move into testing, because now we can test actually something, and you will basically find out about different ways, because Quarkus is having its custom testing framework that you are provided with out of the box. So you will see how to use this unit testing, how to use integrations, also how to use mocking, because that's quite important if we already are testing some remote communication and we don't want to always have all of that free services started when we are running our tests. And also you will learn about something which is called testing profiles, which will allow you to change slightly different test executions. Also, probably what I forgot to mention, inside these first chapters, actually in chapter 2, we will also dive into native compilations with GraalVM, because in Quarkus, it's so easy that it's just a command line flag. Basically, you will just run your Maven clean package with -p native. If you are using only these extensions, which are like supported integration in Quarkus, then you have a guarantee that your application will compile to native. So it's definitely important to show it. We will also explain how to install and what basically is GraalVM and its native image tool. So you will actually get the idea why would you like to use native tooling, but we also have a separate section that will explain to you why it is a good idea to use native and why not. Because In my opinion, Quarkus was really associated too much with these really easy native compilations. And for most applications, most production-like applications, which are like really microservices, it doesn't really make sense to compile to native. And again, if we will have time at the end, then probably I can get into more details. Okay, moving on, we are moving to probably sixth chapter, which is focused on security and user interfaces. Here we needed to make educated guess, because if we would cover all security mechanisms that are supported in Quarkus, then we would spend whole book on it. So we chose OIDC, OpenID Connect, because that's one of the most popular security frameworks right now. And you will also learn about Qt, which is our templating engine in Quarkus, which is really easy to use, together with HTMX, which is a front-end framework for single-page applications. And everything that you will create here will be integrated with Keycloak, which is, again, another dev service, actually, because if OIDC is not connected or it's not configured to connect to a Keycloak, again, a Keycloak container will be started for you in the background. So basically here you will create your fourth service, this user service, which will be really our really simple UI into the reservation system and our car rental, basically integration. From that, we will move back to the other side of the backend, and we will dive into databases. Because again, databases in Quarkus have so many options, because Quarkus came with a really nice framework, which is called Panache, which is basically an opinionated integration from the Hibernate theme, which is really simplifying how to do persistence in Hibernate, at least in my opinion. We chose to spend a little more time on this, so you will have the explanation about what is active record pattern and what is repository pattern, which is probably more known. So you will have the comparison side by side. You will also use it in different services with different databases, and this is like possible to change in the flight if you would choose so. But we chose the Postgres in reservation. MySQL we use in inventory, I think, and MongoDB, because we also want to do NoSQL, we use in rental and in billing service. So you will have, basically, you will see the integrations, which are basically really simple for with this Panache framework. So you will at least see something different, because you can still do with Quarkus the traditional JPA ORM if you would like to. Nobody is against that. But in our opinion, Panache is way simpler, and this is why we chose to go with it. We will also describe something which is called the REST data, which is a really nice extension that can basically just take your entity, and it can basically expose CRUD REST resource based on just entity. So we, like normal create, read, update, delete. So just by creating a really one line of interface, which is parameterized by some generics, you can get a free CRUD resource out of the box. So this is, at least my opinion, a really cool extension. And also, at the end of this chapter, we will dive into something which is called Hibernate Reactive, which is basically reactive access, also integrated with Panache, so it's not that many changes, with Postgres Reactive Client, where we already dive a little bit more into this reactive world, because we cannot avoid it in Quarkus, because Quarkus is based on reactive code on Vertex and Netty. So actually, even when we will be explaining gRPC, in the end, we opt out into using something which is called SmallRye Mutiny, which is our reactive integration in Quarkus, because it's more fluent out of the box, because you can write a blocking gRPC client, but it was not so nice and not so easy to explain actually the gRPC architecture on top of it. So we chose to use some pieces of reactive here and there, even throughout the book, because we will get into like deeper reactive later, because we think that it's important for you to understand that it's not so hard to write. And if you basically choose to write reactive applications, then it's good that you will see like really the integrations, how they're intended to be used out of the box. Because nobody is forcing to use, like for instance, this Hibernate reactive. You can write fully blocking synchronous applications also on Project Loom. We will get into that later nowadays with Quarkus. So if you want to stick to really synchronous blocking code, that's totally fine. But we want to cover as many use cases as we can inside this book. So we chose to use at least some of the basically this reactive world that Quarkus so seamlessly integrate with. Because even when you are using blocking, it mostly is running on top of some non-blocking code, but going from non-blocking to blocking is really easy because you can just say any call that await forever, and you basically block. But going from blocking to non-blocking is not so easy. Okay, and speaking about reactive, then we will move really for 2 chapters really into the reactive programming. Like in the chapter 8, we will really explain the idea why reactive, what kind of issues it's trying to solve, and how is it solving. Why is it forcing you to write your code in a little bit more complicated way? And we will also explain like how easily read basically and write reactive code. We will explain this SmallRye Mutiny project, which is which is the reactive streams implementation inside Quarkus, on which all reactive integrations are based. And in the end, we will also have a not so short, actually it turned out to be a pretty long section about virtual threads and Project Loom, because when we started writing this, it was not so popular, but now when JDK 21, and we want to have our book as latest as we can when we will release, so it will be on JDK 21. Virtual threads and Project Loom are already G8. So we need to explain why Quarkus made the decision not to go full over virtual threads, why we are still sticking to the reactive core and something which is called event loop architecture. So we decided to explain this properly. So we will find it inside this chapter 8 too. From then, in chapter 9, you will move into reactive messaging, actually into MicroProfile reactive messaging, but in Quarkus, there is a lot of more integrations on top of a specification. Here, we will develop actually the integrations with Kafka and RabbitMQ, and we will also explain reactive systems. Just I will go really quickly back to the architecture. So we will implement this part. And this part. So we will actually create the last service, which is called billing, inside this application, which will be fully asynchronous, basically service based only on asynchronous message passing. So we will get also that idea that if you want to really write full reactive systems, but you will find the definition there from Reactive Manifesto 2 inside the book. You will see how to do this, and you will see it in action, basically plugged into fully synchronous system, but at least one microservice will be fully reactive. And from that, we are moving into basically more cloud-oriented deployment architectures, because we still are not finished with all the services. We have most of the stacks already covered, but we still want to do this observability because it's very important when you are moving to cloud. So in chapter 10, you will move into basically cloud native integration, which is more or less tied into the MicroProfile integrations, or how they are called in Quarkus, they are called SmallRye, which is Red Hat's implementation of MicroProfile specifications. So we will see health. So you have some endpoints automatically exposed. So in Kubernetes, you have already basically out of the box liveness, readiness, and startup probes already set up. You will see metrics integration with Micrometer. This is the only part of MicroProfile that Red Hat doesn't support because of various reasons, which we don't need to cover here. But you will have the explanation how to expose micrometer metrics out of your Quarkus applications really easily, how you can plug your own metrics into this. Also, how to plug your own custom health processing, that will be also covered. That will be automatically collected by Prometheus and not plugged, but also Grafana will scrape Prometheus to expose these in some nice dashboards, which we will have out of the box. Then we will move to tracing with OpenTelemetry. Then we will use Jagger to display these traces. Also, this will be integrated with at the end. I think that we will stick to all services, but because performance of the system is not something that we are really after, because we are already complicated it too much. So probably at the end, we will set up metrics definitely for all services. Traces, I'm still not sure if I want to use for every request, but currently it's set up for every request. So your Jagger will really bump up very fast when you will start playing with this example application. And also we will explain different fault tolerance strategies that you can use, because MicroProfile actually has a specification called fault tolerance. And you will find out in chapter 8, actually, that reactive systems has many of these fault strategies or fault tolerance built into how actually these kind of systems are processing different messages. But if you have synchronous protocols like REST, GraphQL, and gRPC, you don't have this out of the box. You need to implement some strategies like retries, timeouts, circuit breakers on your side. So this will cover this kind of area, because still, most of the microservices deployment are actually relying on plain HTTP and REST. So this is kind of important to also cover. And from that, we are moving to the end of the book, where chapter 11 will put everything together, and we will basically create car rental production, deploying it locally on your machine. Then we will also deploy it either on your local OpenShift, or we will also give you an access, because Red Hat provides so-called Red Hat OpenShift sandbox, where you can get a really small cluster for 30 days for exactly this kind of testing. So you will be also able to deploy it into real-like production on someone else's computer, so real cloud. Depending on whether we can fit into the pages or not, we will also cover Kubernetes. But in Quarkus, OpenShift and Kubernetes integration is really similar, because with Quarkus, you don't really need to write any YAML yourself when you are deploying to these platforms. So we will definitely show you how is it generated, how you can actually implement, how you can influence what kind of YAML is actually generated for you. But I don't know if we will have space to also cover both OpenShift and Kubernetes. So maybe we will stick only to OpenShift, because we can give you actually that free cluster in the sandbox. And we will also really shortly in this chapter cover serverless integration, because we actually don't have a real use case inside this microservices application to create a serverless deployment somewhere, but we want to at least explain how it can be done. And we also know that some of our colleagues here in Red Hat are already writing only Quarkus serverless in action. So we will have a full book just on serverless. So we decided to limit the scope of our serverless description inside this book. And the last chapter, which is more or less optional, because this is quite more advanced use case for most applications, is called custom extensions, because anyone can actually write their own extension. There is really nice documentation how you can write your own extensions if you have use case for that, because definitely it's not meant as an extension that you will publish to some to Quarkus ecosystem itself, so anyone can use it, but maybe inside your organization you have a use case that you want to reuse throughout your Quarkus deployments. So maybe you have, sometimes we'll run into this problem that it would be useful to have this integration, because extension will provide you with the many capabilities, especially splitting of build time and runtime processing. So you can choose what kind of processing inside your integration of your library or your code is executed at build time and at runtime, which really speeds up the startup of the application if you can move more stuff to the build time. You can also, for instance, define the hooks to native compilation inside this extension. So you will get a lot of value out of creating the extension and not just plainly integrating some library or some dependency inside your Quarkus deployment. And basically, all of this code, because we like to do everything in open, is already open source, and you can find all the code on my GitHub, Stefan Quarkus in action. I will show you this in later. This will be changing a little bit, because when we are finishing, we still want to rewrite everything in a really solidified way. So you will have every chapter per directory inside this repository. Maybe I can show it and not talk about it. You will have a single, not that block, thank you. Go away. You will have single chapter per each chapter. Sorry, for each chapter you have a single directory, and you will also, but now it's not totally correct, but if I scroll a little bit down, the last that I did recode, you will have the whole book basically split but per chapter, where you will basically see the individual code edit inside the chapter, inside each commit, inside the history. So you will see exactly what is described inside the book here inside the commit history. And moving back, what happened here? And possibly the best benefit, because the first benefit that I see inside this book is that you will really have a really learning path from zero to really full-blown microservices deployment in one go. But we purposely wrote it in a way that if you choose to, you can actually code the whole current application with us on your machine as you are actually reading the book. So it's really up to you as a reader if you decide that you just want to read or you want to really code the whole microservices system with us. And basically the final version that we will release in spring 2024, because we are actually finishing the last chapter right now, will be 12 chapters, will be around 380, maybe 400 pages. We decided that we will stick to Quarkus 3.5.0 for now and JDK 21. And basically, since we are still writing this, I would really ask you to share any comments, ideas, or opinions that you will have. You can find me definitely always online on this URL, or you can find me or on X, on Mastodon, Blue Sky, anywhere. You can also find my email on my GitHub. So please reach out. If you have any ideas, we are listening to you. We are actually changing the content if we agree that something should be covered more, or if some use cases are more common than we thought, that basically people are using some kind of functionalities. So you will be helping the future readers of this book. So please just talk to us if you have any ideas. And with that, I am basically finished with my presentation. So you can find the book at this QR code. You can actually use this code AU35STE to get 35% off of anything on Manning. But actually tomorrow, I want to just mention, there is a Black Friday sale starting from November 24th to 27th, where you can get, I think, print book for 40% off, and I don't remember the ebook, but it was also like 40-50%. So definitely, if you are interested in buying this book, I would recommend waiting for tomorrow. And with that, I can probably check if we have any questions. Can you tell me, Max, if you have any questions, so I will not spam infinite loop?
Yeah. Well, first of all, man, this don't have this book is it's not a good choice. Am I right? You haven't been covered a lot of aspects that most of developers needs to handle when they are trying to use microservice pattern or trying to develop microservices. Well, we
Yeah.
got some questions on the chat. We got right here, for example, we from Love, I think so. Okay, have you considered adding a chapter or an appendix about Project to Learn, as it seems it will be
Yeah.
used quite a lot in the future? I think that is, you have been show something about that. Am I
Yeah,
right?
we already edited and it will be in the next revision of the book.
Oh, amazing, amazing. I got a question for you, Martin.
Go ahead.
For example, we know that today Quarkus is using Vertex behind the scenes. Most of the code are reactive ones, am I right? So it looks like when a request comes, it will be translate to a synchronous process and so on. But with virtual threads, how Quarkus will handle it? It will adapt 100% to virtual threads, or it will be a kind of mixing things. It's a sorry
So
about for the question, but it's a very interesting.
I understand. So basically, in Quarkus, we chose to not go full blown virtual threads just yet. So there is no like global flag that can like set around everything on virtual threads. This is not existent in Quarkus. In Quarkus, you only have a single annotation, which is at run on virtual thread, which you can either place on a method or on a class, which will make all the methods in the class to run on virtual threads. So you need to make a really expressive decision that you want to run something on virtual thread, because we at Red Hat we can still see that Project Loom is not yet ready for everyday production applications. There are still some problems which they didn't solve. And if you are using, and mostly because it's not usually the problems that you will run into inside your code, but you are using a bunch of libraries, like for instance, Hibernate, which are using this kind of code which virtual threads don't like really. And you can run into some kind of issues. Even without you actually knowing that you are running inside these kind of issues if you don't test it properly. So this is why you need to be really explicit that you want to run something on virtual thread, because we still believe that people don't fully understand what are the consequences, especially under high load when you move everything to virtual threads. Inside that section, inside chapter 8, we actually describe all of these problems in detail. So you will see like how you can run into these kind of issues and what they actually are. Probably Project Loom will try to push individual libraries, like basically whole Java ecosystem, to fix these kind of issues, because there are some like migration strategies which will co-op basically with virtual threads, but we are still not there, and we will not be there when we will be releasing this book.
Oh, amazing! We got a someone that wants to contribute as well. Mateus Cruz say, "Oh, hi Stefanko, nice job. Really, it's a great book. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I
Thank
agree to
you.
you, Mateus. So, do you need any contribution with the translation when you're reading files to Portuguese? So,
Oh,
you can contribute there.
wow. Definitely, that's impressive. If you reach out to me after the talk, please do. Then we can ask Manning, basically my publisher, if they would be interested in this.
Oh,
That's actually
amazing,
really impressive to me. Thank you.
amazing, amazing. Well, I saw a question on the YouTube channel, but I didn't see right here. But I will asking you directly. Okay. because probably our tool got a delay. That's the reason why I don't show. But actually, Fernando Henrique asked it, with virtual threads future, do you believe that reactive programming will still be relevant? What do you think? It's a kind of guessing answer, I think so.
In my opinion, I still think that for those applications that really are after really peak performance in terms of throughput that you need to squeeze from your Java application, like API gateways, I don't know, proxies, etc., reactive will be still a little bit better, more performant than what you could achieve with virtual thread. And just really quickly, why I think this is the case, because actually I actually created a diagram inside the book which will show you in comparison how the performance benefit inside like reactive event loop and virtual thread carrier thread, which is actually that real platform thread that is executing your individual virtual threads, are really similar architectures. The only difference is that in event loop, it's controlled by us inside Quarkus, and you actually can hook inside that. You can actually say, I want to run this on like some blocking thread, or I know that this is non-blocking, it's reactive, asynchronous. I know that it's safe to run it on event loop. Inside carrier threads with Project Loom, you cannot. Basically, you don't have any influence on whether when actually JVM decides to basically that your virtual thread start blocking, so it will move it away from the platform thread. And this is that actually one of the points where you will run into the issues, because if JVM will not detect that point that you are about to block, then you are actually starting to block your carrier thread. And then you are basically degrading back to the same execution model with limited platform threads as we had for the past 25 years.
Okay, so you mean that a mixing thing will happen, and probably with reactive pattern we got more control. Am I right? So maybe
Yes.
it looks like virtual threads platform hiding you from any kind of details behind the scenes, and
Yes.
you cannot detect that along the way, because we know how hard it is to the debug reactive programming or asynchronous code. So it's very hard.
Definitely, it will be easier to debug virtual threads. That I'm not arguing, but I still think that I want to be more like I want to know what is actually being done under the hood, and have the option to influence that. But on then to rely on somebody else's code that is doing it properly, if I cannot prove that it's doing it correctly. Because we also have some hooks now in like newer Quarkus versions where you can actually detect this pinning. It's also provided by the JDK themselves, so you can trace this pinning of virtual threads if you want to search about it a little bit more. But it's still a relatively young technology, so I would give it a few years, and who knows, maybe in 5-10 years Quarkus will decide to go full on virtual threads too. But for now, we are still sticking with reactive.
Oh, great! Hey, Martin, could you share with me in a private chat your GitHub repository from the book, because someone Antonio Carlos asked it to get this link, so maybe.
I probably can stop sharing, so I will see you too.
Uh,
Everyone saw my screen a lot. So if you can paste it somewhere, that would be great, because I don't know if I can reply to chat myself.
okay. You send me where did you send me?
On Discord.
On Discord. Okay, guys, hold on, please. Great. Here it is, the URL. Let me share here in the platform. Great. Okay, amazing. So we got another question from Igor de Souza. Unfortunately, in my side, in the platform, it not show up, but I'm accessing directly to YouTube channel, so I can see that he asking, Can you talk about? I think that you have been talking about framework regarding virtual threads. I think it's framework VS. I think on the server, it's natty ready for virtual threads. For example, I think is related to framework regarding virtual threads. I think so.
Well, anything like that run on virtual thread is supported in Quarkus, so you are free to use it if you want to. You just don't have like a really global flag to do it like everywhere, because that's not something that we want to allow.
Oh, great. Great. I have another question, but I think that it's around the things that I have been done in Jakarta. We did an amazing discussion on on GitCom regarding the patterns, the Jakarta, and so on. And and looks like today, most of the I don't know how does that thing show to you, and but looks like we live in a bubble. Okay, most of us living in a bubble. Down here in Brazil, we used to see most of the people focus on the Spring stuff instead of Quarkus stuff or something like that. We used to see the people don't follow Jakarta specification, Jakarta stuff, and we have a huge discussion about that. What do you think about Jakarta stuff and because I know that Quarkus used to use the specifications to improve their code and so on, to provide features and so on. What do you think about the way that the people looking for those tools? Because everything are tool for us, all right? So, but uh, do you think that it's profitable to developers to looking for Jakarta specifications as well by using Quarkus, or you think that it's better to developers focus on Quarkus stuff as only or something like that? What do you think about that?
So in Quarkus, you don't have the full Jakarta specifications, like everything, because some of the specifications are quite old and technologies are quite outdated and they have been replaced by something else. But for the specifications that Quarkus support, it's definitely, at least for me, the way to go, because specification is still a specification. Also, JAX-RS, JPA, can be like a really a solid way when you want to transfer to different frameworks. This is like still a value if you want to have this seamless transition, but nowadays I really don't think that you have that many runtimes that you would transfer from Quarkus to. Definitely it can help when you are transferring from something to Quarkus, at least for the APIs that Quarkus supports. But in general, if I should, for instance, make a choice between like a plain JPA and this Panache framework that we are describing inside the book, I would go with Panache every time, because it's just like the Hibernate team came up with the idea that they couldn't push inside the specification. They made really an opinionated API, which I really like. So it depends on you, because nowadays, if you are going to transfer from Quarkus to Spring Boot or from Spring Boot to Quarkus, which are usually the most common migrations, then you need to rewrite the whole application nevertheless, because nothing is the same, mostly. So if you hit JPA because you are using Spring Data JPA and you have like one thing that you don't need to rewrite, for me, it's not that much difference.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And we see that on a when your specification that will come in Java 11, will be Jakarta data. Do you have some ideas about the roadmap that if your Quarkus will implement that or not? I don't know. Do you have some information about that?
I actually think that you already implemented like enough to get it into the Quarkiverse, which is basically a set of extensions which are living outside of the main Quarkus repository, but they are still supported as a part of the ecosystem. So if you would be interested to be part of this ecosystem, and they are actually like scrapped inside the Quarkus platform when we are doing the release. So anyone can see that there is JNoSQL and Jakarta data specification. Go for it. Like, I definitely think that there is a use case, because people have different needs, have different opinions, like different things. So like the more the merrier, because you have the options. And also, that's something which I didn't show. Maybe I can still show it.
Sure. And you guys on the chat, so feel free to send questions and so on. It's amazing to talking about it. Okay, it's amazing.
In Quarkus, code.quarkus.io, you have this starter at code.quarkus.io, where you can see basically all the extensions which you can include inside your applications, which is a really long list if you want to go through all of it. But here you can also find that extensions which are coming from that Quarkiverse, which is basically an organization on Quarkiverse, organization on GitHub, where basically any one of you that would be interested in maintaining their own extension, because like really this is just a matter of like it takes too long to build over 1123, I think. I was building Quarkus today, modules which are currently in main Quarkus repository. So this is the only reason why we don't include more extensions inside the main repository. But anyone can create their own extension here. So you see here like really different kind of stuff. The whole idea is that if you are interested in having your own Quarkus extension published together with all other extensions, all you need to do is ask. We will create the repository for you, basically integrate it with the CI that is testing against the latest Quarkus platform. So you know that your code is not breaking something inside other Quarkus extensions. And basically we will like script all of these extensions which are stable inside the Quarkus platform when we release. So in this way, if you want to have your own extensions, you can.
Oh, amazing! It's interesting to see the way that Quarkus, the strategy that Quarkus offered to the people to extend the platform, right? Because by extensions we can give opportunity to developers to improve the Quarkverse. So it's very interesting. Well, I got a question from Antonio. Antonio Carlos have been asked about. Could you tell me more about the testing that you put in your code? Because as a developer, I used I need to say that the developer experience when we are work with Quarkus is amazing because we can using TDD and a real way. What's it? Understand? Because you can testing along the way. I think it's amazing thing. So could you give me more details about testing about the piece of your book that talks about testing?
Actually, this got me thinking that maybe I can do a follow-up session here about like really that dev mode experience. If you would be interested, like for 1 hour, I actually have a talk that will show you all of this in action. So actually for testing, you basically will get the whole idea of the integration framework of that Quarkus test that you will get out of the box with Quarkus. So you will see how to write basically the test, which is really testing your code. You will also see how to use that same testing for native executable, or not native executable, any package executable, because that integration test, Quarkus integration test, can also run either against package jar, package native, or even package Docker container out of the box. If you just like are building your application, depending on what kind of extensions and flags you are using. Also, this is just in that chapter 5, which is really overview of the testing framework. You will see mocking, you will see the basic use cases with the test profiles, like overriding of configuration, for instance, which might be useful for some kind of tests. Later inside the book, inside specific sections, for instance, inside the reactive messaging, I chose to implement also testing strategies, or how to write tests for Kafka and plain RabbitMQ with reactive messaging, because that's a little bit more complex. So you will get plenty of testing, but we don't want to like for you to write tests for the half of the book. So it's really not so much test inside the book, but you will have the idea how to write the test yourself for any use case that we are covering inside the current application.
Oh, it's amazing because it's. I think that if the platform doesn't offer us a good way to test things, it's something that developers will just step up, right?
Exactly.
And
This
testing
is
something.
what I really wanted to showcase, like how it's intended to be done. And I think that maybe we have some tests here and then. Definitely, we did some testing also with databases because that's also kind of hard. What is nice is that the dev services also work in test mode, so no need to set up some different database or like basically any database for testing. You will just run your test and we will spin a new Postgres container on the side, and your test instance is now connected only to that new Postgres. So you can run your test against a real database, which will be killed after the test is done. So this kind of tests, everything in there. Also Hibernate reactive, definitely, because that's a little bit harder. And as I mentioned, that reactive messaging for sure, because that's definitely harder because you don't want to try to manually scrap messages from Kafka. You want to have some integration on top of that.
Yeah.
Which
Otherwise, the people will start to mocking everything, and when we mock everything, we don't control anything behind the scenes. It's a fake scenario if you use mock it for everything. So
no, this is what, like, if you can, then in Quarkus you will get that the service to actually test the real thing in the background.
yeah, yeah. The dev services are amazing because we don't need to care about the infrastructure thing. So it's amazing one. Oh, that's it. So I don't know, guys. If you want to chat, got more questions, please send us. I think that we are at a time.
Yeah. One more thing, if I can, to finish with,
Sure.
I actually have free 100 discount codes for the ebook version of Quarkus in Action. So actually, I think that Max will send you some kind of form after the talk. So if you fill this out, we will take 3 of you out of the filled forms, and we will send you back 100% discount code. So we will get the
Yeah,
book for.
yeah. We can do this, guys. So still time, guys, on the chat. I will send on Twitter and on LinkedIn about this one. So when you fill out the form, we can book another talk again, and we can ruffle those numbers. So if you don't care about that, okay, amazing. Thanks again, Martin, for this opportunity to talking about your book. I think most of developers that wants to learn more about Quarkus, this book is the book. Am I right?
Well, I hope so, but it's my book, so it's not like really my place to say, right?
Amazing, amazing. So we can see the people saying amazing talks. So Danilo we're saying thank yous again. So we can see Rodrigo saying thank you for all. So that's it, guys. So still turning in Twitter and our social media. I don't know, Mario. Do you want to share your social media if the people wants to reach out to
Definitely,
you?
you can find me on X as X Stefank, also on Mastodon and Blue Sky, similarly, or Martin Stefanko on LinkedIn. I'm responding everywhere. Thank you for having me. Actually, I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. So still turning, guys. See you the next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.